Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to do a super fun summer split tumbler design. We're going to use this really cute pattern from the Vinyl Cottage. This was a freebie Friday a couple weeks ago, and we're going to do a half wrap split design on this 24-ounce tapered tumbler. I started out by prepping my tumbler by sanding it and wiping it down with some rubbing alcohol. And now I'm taking my tumbler lid, and on the lid you'll see there are these very subtle little lines on either side of the lid, on the front and the back. And if you use those as a guide to help you split your tumbler in half, it makes things a whole lot easier. So I'm going to add just two little pieces of tape here to the lines on my lid just to help me see them a little bit more easily. So you can see there I've got a nice straight line splitting my cup in half with my tape, and I'm going to use those tape lines to help me draw some lines with my Sharpie pen down my tumbler. Because this is a tapered tumbler, I'm actually using my scraper tool from the Bowen to help me draw a straight line down the cup. Typically, I would use my Ultimate Tumbler tool, but because it's a tapered tumbler, it's really hard to use that tool to get a straight line. So I'm just kind of winging it and trying to do my best to get the line as straight as possible. Once I've got my lines drawn on my tumbler, I'm going to use those as a guide for placing my blue painter's tape on either side. And then I'm going to take my measuring tape and just measure from the top rim of the cup, making sure that my two halves are actually even. Sometimes I don't get them even and I get really frustrated, but I always measure to make sure that they are as close to a 50-50 equal split as possible. I got lucky on the first try though, and they were an even measurement from the first try, thank goodness. So now I'm going to take my sheet of pattern vinyl and I'm going to wrap it around this half of the cup and make two marks, one at the edge and one at the bottom. And I do leave a little bit of excess on each end just to make sure that I have enough of an allowance in case I measured incorrectly. So once my vinyl is cut down, I'm going to actually place it in the middle of this half to position it the right way. Typically what I would do with a vinyl wrap is line one edge of the vinyl up straight with my straight line of tape. But if you do that on a tapered tumbler, you'll find that as you wrap the vinyl around the half of your cup, it won't be lined up right and you'll have some blank spots. So I like to start from the middle, wrap it around that half, and then tape down the edge. You can see it's the edge of the vinyl is kind of diagonal there. So I taped that down, and now I'm just going to apply the vinyl as I normally would. I removed a little bit of the backing and secured a little bit of the vinyl to my tumbler, and now I'm using my felt edged squeegee to push the vinyl onto this half of the cup. Now I'm going to trim off all of the excess from the top and bottom rims and the sides of the tumbler. Now for this cup, we're going to treat the bottom rim the exact same as the top rim. I'm going to finish the bottom a little bit differently on this cup than I normally would because it has such a harsh, sharp, flat bottom. I wanted to show you just a little bit of a different way that you can finish these. So I cut the excess from the top of the cup. Now I'm going to cut all the excess off from each side. By the way, this process is a billion times easier if you use a new blade on your craft knife. I am always changing my blades and I swear it is so worth it. It makes cutting these things so easy. You don't ever snag your knife or anything on anything. So I cut off the excess from the sides and now I'm going to move down to the bottom rim. And as you can see, I'm just pulling it tightly over the rim the same way I do up at the top, and I'm going to treat it the exact same way. So I'm going to take my knife and just run it along at about a 45-degree angle, trimming off all of that excess vinyl so that we've got a really clean edge on the bottom and a really clean edge on the top. I'm going to reuse all of the same painter's tape that I used on the first half of the cup to mask it off and use that to mask off our vinyl side now so that we can paint and glitter the other half of our cup. I also attempted to tape off the bottom of my tumbler The goal here is to have my paint and my glitter and epoxy and everything on this half of the cup go down the entire body of the tumbler, but not onto the actual bottom. So I put some little painter's tape down there and I used my cup edging tool to try to cut it down. It didn't quite go low enough, so I had to go rogue and go in by hand. But the goal here is to just have that painter's tape on the very bottom of the cup. I want the entire side of my tumbler to be blank. I don't want any stainless steel showing like as you're just looking at the cup, you know, in your hand or have it standing up on a table or whatever. I just want the bottom to be plain stainless because we're going to finish off the bottom a little differently. All right, so we've got our vinyl side taped up and now we're going to base paint and glitter the other half. I'm going to use this acrylic paint. This is the color Exotic Bloom. And the glitter we're going to use is Minnie from Peachy Olive Glitters. So I'm going to do one coat of the paint just by itself, let it dry, and then we will use the epoxy method to apply the glitter. So I'm going to do a pretty solid coat of this paint. This paint brand has really, really good coverage anyway, but I really want a good solid base just so we have like a big punch of glitter color. So you can see that's just one coat of paint. I'm just going to make sure that this is smooth, that there aren't any gunkies or anything in there. Right, and I'm going to let this dry for about maybe 20-30 minutes. It's pretty thin, it should be pretty fast to dry. Once my paint has dried, I'm going to add some epoxy to this half of my tumbler to adhere my glitter. You can use any adhesive or method you prefer. I'm just really digging the epoxy method lately. So I'm going to put a very, very, very thin layer of epoxy on this half of my cup, and then we'll go in with our glitter. Again, we are using Minnie from Peachy Olive Glitters. Immediately after glittering, I'm going to remove all of the painter's tape on the other half of the tumbler. I don't want the epoxy and glitter to cure over that tape, and then it'll make it a million times harder to peel up. So I'm just going to do it right after glittering and then set my cup aside and let it dry for about 3 to 4 hours. Once the epoxy is all dry, I'm going to take a chip brush and brush off any excess glitter that might be hanging out on that side of the cup. And then I'm going to go in and seal this glitter with my favorite sealer. This is a 50-50 mix of water and the Crystalac glitter glue. And I'm just going to brush a thin layer over that glitter side, clean my brush off a little bit, and then I will also seal the vinyl side. I'm taking a paper towel here and again cleaning up the bottom rim of the tumbler. I want to keep that as clean as possible. I let the sealer dry for about 2 hours, and now I'm going to go in with my first 2 coats of epoxy. I'm using the Flynn Sisters Artist Cure epoxy for this, so I mixed up about 20 milliliters, and I'm going to apply all of that to my tumbler. Because our glitter is sealed so well, I'm not really concerned about how I'm applying the epoxy here. Like, I'm not doing the vinyl first and then the glitter. Everything is pretty sealed and that glitter should not move at all. So I'm just going to apply the epoxy to the entire body of my cup, again, avoiding the bottom of the tumbler. I let that coat cure for about 6 hours, and then I added a second coat right on top of that. And now we're ready to do all of our sanding and add all of our vinyl details. We're going to do a double offset for our decal, and then we're going to do some triple striping on the sides of the cup. This SVG is available on my website. I designed it. It says made for sunny days. And before we add the decal, we're going to add the striping. So we're using the exact same colors that we're going to use in the decal on the striping. So first I'm going in with champagne gold textured metallic vinyl from Teckwrap Craft. I cut that at 0.17 inches wide. And then for the second layer, I'm using this beautiful, I think this is called emerald green chrome, but it's a really, really pretty like turquoisey color, also from Teckwrap Craft. I cut that at 0.12 inches, I believe. And then I'm actually going to go in with some nail striping tape in white, and I'm going to lay 2 layers of that right in the middle of the turquoise vinyl. You could also cut vinyl stripes out of your, with your machine or whatever, but I just got all this nail tape and I really wanted to use it, so I used that. on each side. So once I had both sides of the cup done, I am ready to move into my decal. So for the decal, we're going to use the same layers that we did on the striping. So I'm going to start with my champagne gold textured metallic, and I'm going to use this new transfer tape I got from Teckwrap Craft. This is the black grid transfer tape. I'll have it linked down below in the description box, but it has really great adhesion or stickiness, and it is the only transfer tape that works with this textured metallic vinyl. Typically I have a huge struggle with the textured vinyl working with transfer tape, but this works great. So I'm going to put it on my decal, and then I'm going to cut around all of the edges except for one, and then for the last edge I'm just going to cut away the backing and leave the transfer tape adhesive kind of hanging off the edge, so we can use that to place our decal and make sure that everything is centered before we actually stick the decal down on the cup. Once my decal is in the correct position, I'm going to hinge the transfer tape back, remove the rest of the backing from my decal, and then pull the decal down using the hinge method to apply to my tumbler. I'm going to remove that transfer tape and then use the same piece to go in and add the teal layer. Now, be proud of me because I did this all in one piece. I didn't get it perfectly centered, but I did do it all in one piece. So once I've got the teal layer down, I'm going to go in with my white layer on top. I did cut the white layer into each individual word just because I feel better placing decals that way, but however you want to do it is totally fine. Once all our vinyl work is complete, we are going to move to the bottom of the tumbler and do a little bit of a glitter booty down here. So I'm going to take some UV resin. I'm using the CC DIY UV resin, and the glitter I'm going to use is Pogue from Peachy Olive Glitters. It's a really pretty fine, like teal turquoise color. I wanted to bring out a little bit of that color from the vinyl and just do a little bit of a different pop of color on the bottom. I've got about 10 milliliters of this UV resin in my cup, and I'm just going to pour it into the little well that's already in the bottom of this tumbler, and I'm going to use gravity to help me just spread the epoxy and glitter mixture around the bottom, as you can see there. I just used my heat gun to pop any bubbles. I didn't have a lighter or torch or anything around, so I just used my heat gun. And then I did have to cure this for like 5 minutes. It was a pretty thick layer, so it took a longer time to cure. In hindsight, I probably would have done 2 thinner layers instead. But anyway, after that was all cured, I did my final 2 coats of epoxy on my tumbler, and then we are all done. So here's the final result. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Definitely puts me in the summertime mood. Don't forget to check the description box for everything I used in this video, and also all of my social media pages, my Facebook group, my mentorship group, all that fun stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Love you. Bye.